Last night, news broke of a plot from inside of the U.S. military that thankfully was foiled back in May that could have resulted in the deaths of multiple of our soldiers, with the threat coming from within. Let me catch you up a little bit. An Army private confessed to sharing secret information with a satanic neo-Nazi group in a plot to attack his own unit while it was overseas and cause the deaths of as many of his fellow service members as possible, apparently according to him. This is federal prosecutors making this case yesterday in Manhattan. The private, whose name is Phelan Melzer, was charged in an indictment unsealed this week with collaborating with the Order of the Nine Angles, or O9A, a group that prosecutors described as an occult-based neo-Nazi and racially motivated violent extremist group, which apparently had been collaborating with, and I'm not kidding, which should be clear, with a group called Rapewaffen. But anyway, a number of international, white supremacist groups like that. This group's followers apparently not only admire people like Adolf Hitler, but also Osama bin Laden. So you might describe them as a more cosmopolitan white supremacist international terror group. But anyway, Jordan, so this guy, joined the military to then provide information about unit movements and defensive capabilities so that they could be wiped out. It's just a truly amazing story that I don't see enough focus on today.
Yeah, we've seen from other folks like Ken Klippenstein and people at Media Matters who have been tracking, and Right Wing Watch with Jared Holt, we've seen people track and identify white supremacists and hate group members who are in the military, and you have to question, why is there this influx, and why is this an issue and so prevalent in the military? And you have to think about the jingoism and the xenophobia inherent and embedded in military mindset. When we have a system where people elsewhere are treated as others and subhuman, you have to think about what type of person that might attract. So, this is pretty disturbing. Glad that this person was identified and caught, but still, this isn't the only one. There's so many more. We've seen it time and time again, and you gotta examine why this is happening, because this isn't just this isn't an anomaly. This happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there have been reports going back about KKK continued influence over police departments across the country, which, if you know anything about the development of police departments, should not really be a shock, but also about white supremacist infiltration of the military, especially apparently including the special forces. And it just doesn't seem to be taken seriously. Now, one potential reason for that is that, the investigations into domestic terror, right-wing groups that would be doing this sort of infiltrating and online radicalization, has been defunded, and the organizations designed to investigate that sort of thing have been taken apart. All of this, by the way, textbook political correctness from the right. That they don't like the political implications of a thing that's being investigated, so they shut it down. They don't actually care that it's a threat. They just don't like the fact that information could come out about it. And so, what do you know? These plots continue to develop. Now, in this particular case, thankfully, it was stopped. But are we to believe that this Army private is the only person doing this sort of thing? That the Order of the Nine Angles, or whatever the hell it is, that they're only talking to one person? And so now you have to wonder, what about the plots that actually succeeded? What would that look like to an outsider? It would look like soldiers that had turned up dead. Now, perhaps it would be in Europe, like in this case, but what if they were sharing information, not just admiring Osama bin Laden, but actually sharing information with terror groups in the Mideast? Have we lost soldiers because of incidents like this? All of this is speculation. I have no idea. But how would we know? And the issue is that it doesn't seem like anyone is taking white supremacy seriously enough, and especially the threat of them getting involved in things like police departments and the military, where they can wreak real havoc, that they can get the training, they can get the weapons, and they can potentially do a great deal of harm.
Yeah, and as we've seen with people like this, and one of the shooters at a protest recently, is the ultimate ploy here is to try to inspire what they call a race war. They want some sort of conflict and dynamic that pits two groups of people, whites and people of color, against each other, so we have some sort of armed racial conflict. That's their ultimate goal. And this is, a deeply held white supremacist belief and viewpoint, and as it manifests, it results in death and violence and mass casualties. So we have to be aware of that, and we have to be vigilant.
Exactly, and I'll just remind people that it was just early last year that a Coast Guard lieutenant and self-described white nationalist, surprisingly, was charged with plotting to kill a number of different journalists and Democratic politicians. I don't know where a terrorist like this would get this list of journalists and politicians. I don't know where. We've never seen anything like this, Caesar Sayoc, or anything like that. But thankfully, that person was stopped as well. But this is hardly the only instance of terrorism coming from inside of our military. Maybe it's time that we take it seriously. But of course, that isn't going to happen, at least while Trump is in office.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.